Nigerian officials have been conducting post-mortems on those who died in the Nigerian building collapse. So far, government says only 18 post-mortems have been carried out on the 80 South Africans who lost their lives in the disaster. Let's cross live now to our West Africa correspondent, Adora Chimba, who spent yesterday at one of the Lagos morgues. And good morning to you, Adora. It must have been a fairly traumatic experience spending that amount of time at the morgues, but I believe you got a chance to talk to officials who were involved in this process of identification. What did they have to say to you?
Good morning. Yes, it is a traumatic trip to the morgue for anybody. Although we were in the reception area waiting for family members to come and present themselves. Yesterday was a very light day because only one family group showed up at the time that we were there, and it was a very emotional encounter. Now, the process was for the family members to meet with officials of the Department of Pathology there and get some counseling and guidance as to what was required of them and what the necessary steps were needed for them to carry out. Now, the first step is the identification through DNA. Next of kin is required and test samples will be taken. This family that we met over there, they lost their father, so the son, a little boy, was present to present his DNA samples to be matched to find their father's body. Now, it is a very painstaking process because there are various laws that are required. Again, for Nigeria, whether or not there is a positive identification, whether through ID or facial recognition, it is required that DNA analysis must be taken, which is why it is taken a long process, especially when the incident is one such as this one, one that involves accident, a violent death, and things of that sort, unnatural causes. Now, a coroner's inquest has also been set up to also establish what led to the deaths of these 115 people. The postmortem started on Saturday. So far, as of yesterday, 18 postmortems have been carried out. We are going to the morgue today to also get some updates and also meet some of the family members who are coming to present themselves for DNA sampling to be taken.
And Adore, the closest incident to this in terms of this DNA processing is probably the Dana plane crash in Lagos that took place some time ago, and we know that it set a precedent for this. What sort of similarities are there between the process that was employed in that particular accident and this one in Lagos?
Just a correction, the Dana incident was not the first. However, it was one of the larger cases, one of the cases that had a large number of casualties and several nationals from other countries. And so some diplomatic considerations had to be involved. But it was still the same process. DNA analysis had to be taken. The next of kin had to be present for that. Death certificates had to be issued and signed by next of kin, and that process took 6 weeks. This is just about the third week into this incident, and some considerations have also been made because of the sheer amount of South Africans involved. The Department of Pathology officials tell us that the DNA testing is not going to be done in Nigeria. In fact, it is going to be done in South Africa, so that South Africans who are affected will go to these the designated center and provide their DNA sample. So they will not be required to come to Nigeria as is required by Nigerian law. Next of kin must be present and must present themselves in person for that DNA analysis to be taken in Nigeria. But in this case, the Nigerian side, from my conversation with the officials at the pathology center, is that the South Africans will not be required to be in Nigeria to take to give their DNA sample. Instead, that will be done in South Africa. Now, of course, all these considerations are being made as conversations go on regarding this issue, and we will be speaking further to the state pathologist, chief pathologist, and get more insight as to how this would work. Remember, the death certificate is supposed to be signed by the next of kin as issued by the Nigerian government. So if these these allowances are being made, how would that play out? These are some of the questions that we will be getting answers to later in the day.
I think one of the main points of concern, certainly here at home, is the fact that many of these bodies, we're told, are in a very advanced state of decomposition. We're told that they were damaged, first of all, in the collapse of that building. Secondly, due to rolling blackouts, the mortuaries have not been able to cope with keeping their fridges online, and therefore the bodies have not been kept in the best conditions in Nigeria.
Well, I can't personally confirm that to you because the center where we went to has 2 standby generators. I haven't heard of any of such from this side. Again, some people are privy to gaining access to the morgue facility and where these bodies are kept. I haven't been given that access yet, but I will try to get information as to that allegation of the rolling blackouts and the issues that you have mentioned. But for now, that is an unverified claim that I cannot speak to that. But we have been at the morgue and seen the officials there, and they say for now that they are meeting the families and taking this DNA sample so that they can match the bodies to the right families and get those bodies home for burial.
South Africa seems to be walking a very fine diplomatic line, and certainly here we get the sense that there is some kind of tension between South African and Nigerian officials over this issue. What is the feeling like for you as a journalist covering this story on the ground in Lagos?
There is a lot of misunderstanding of the laws and procedures that guide this particular incident. Now, recall that Nigeria and South Africa have not had this haven't had to deal with this sort of issue on this scale. So, understanding the laws is an issue because people are trying to understand why it's taking such a long period of time for this process to be concluded. Now, again, there is a lot of suspicion because of the relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. There is a lot of suspicion about some of the things that are going on, but it is really taken out of context to some extent because of the lack of understanding of the laws and procedures that are required for this particular situation. It is something that the 2 governments have not dealt with on this scale, and the 2 sides are trying to understand, especially the South African side, are also trying to understand and work within the gamuts of what the laws in Nigeria can afford them and what the laws provide. Now, the Nigerian government has made some concessions and exceptions because of the sheer number of casualties that were involved for the South African government, and they have made some concessions and exceptions, but again, that can only be to a certain extent. Most of the laws and procedures have to be followed so that no one can come around and say that they got the wrong body or the wrong procedure was carried out. Again, it's a very fine line that they're walking, but from my conversation with the officials, they are doing their best to get around the limitations of the law and to work with the South African government.
Our West Africa correspondent Adore Chumba, thanks very much for that update live to us from Lagos.